Welcome to Contractor Cuts, where we cover the good, the bad, and the ugly of growing a successful contracting company.
Welcome back to Contractor Cuts. My name is Clark Turner.
My name is Jared.
Thanks for joining us again. Last week we were discussing in our very first coaching meeting when we're starting to assess a construction company. This is what we're looking at and starting by the game plan. Here's kind of our game plan to get started. This is what you should start looking at yourself. If you're going without, teaming up with Alliance, no problem. Get started with these things, dissecting each of those three areas.
Starting with the basics.
Most of the three were financial organization, processes of the company.
Organization,
and then going into
time management.
Mm-hmm. So those were the three that we start with, understanding and getting a solid game plan for those three and starting to implement those.
And now we're at part two.
Part two of that is when we sit down with contractors, once they start getting a handle in those three areas, usually by the second, third, fourth coaching session, there's three different things that we've pinpointed that almost every contractor says, yeah, not for me,
right,
when we're putting out there. And then they come around afterwards and say, thank you for forcing me to do that. Mm-hmm. You were right. I was wrong. And again, we're not looking for that. We're looking to help you understand why we push so hard for these three things to happen.
Right.
So the three things, we're going to tell you up front, all three of them, and then we're going to break them down. So the first thing is a solid work order program. No labor's done without it being on a work order.
Yep.
That's the very first thing. And we'll dive into that one. The second thing is having line item invoicing, knowing exactly what the client's paying you for, because that's the same thing you're paying your sub for.
Right.
And then the third thing that we get a bunch of pushback on is that they are looking to spray like a fire hose money at problems.
Yeah.
And maybe it's marketing and other things, but the problem is we need to pause and strategically spend money when we have the money.
Strategic money spending.
And B, let's get our processes and our product good and then spend the money to push that better product than what you've got. And again, a lot of guys say, well, I've got a good product. Sure you do. It's in your brain. And if we double the amount of clients you have, you can't handle it. You're going to turn them away.
Right.
So let's get a process in place that's duplicatable. So when we put that money into marketing, you now have a place to catch all the revenue you're making off that spend, and you're getting return on investment.
Right.
So let's dive into those. Going back to the first one, a strategic and solid work order system. So a lot of companies come in here day one. They pay guys really 2 to 3 different ways. 3 different ways.
Yeah.
One way is hourly. I'm going to keep your hours. Let's get you an hour tracking software.
Just report to me how many hours you worked.
Yeah, and I'm going to pay you per hour. You're going to put in X, Y, and Z.
You've been with me for a long time.
Yep.
I trust the guy. He's not going to take advantage of me, all of that.
That's one way. The other way is by day. Hey, I need you for 3 days, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. I'm going to pay you $250 a day. So I got $750 for you to do this stuff. And so that's kind of the same as hourly. But that way to pay, or you have more trade vendors that are going out quoting a job and giving you a quote.
I'll do this for $1,000,
and they say, that should cost me $1,000, and then they end up sending you an invoice after the fact for $1,500. Right. So those are kind of the ways that we see guys paying crews, and that are absolutely the wrong way to do it. Jared, let's say that's you're a contractor coming in, and I'm your coach. Tell me, Jared, why do you like to invoice that way, and why won't you stop invoicing that way?
Well, I mean, the first thing is it's easier to know what to pay them.
Yeah.
Because, how do I know what's fair to them on the front end of just coming up with a price? If they're okay at X amount of dollars a day or X amount of dollars per hour, then I know that they're going to be out there working and they're going to be happy with the money that they're making. And so it's just easier to be able to figure out the numbers. It's reliable because I don't have to guess. I just know exactly if he puts 20 hours in, I'm going to pay him $200 at $10 an hour, or $400 at $20 an hour, blah, blah, blah.
And I bid this enough that where I can handle it and that sort of thing. I think the first question I would ask that guy is, are you a crew leader where you're executing the work, or are you a project manager for a company that's going to be managing the work that you're doing, right? Are you a paint company that is managing paint crews and managing your painters, which might be salary, might be subcontractors, however that are you that guy, or are you the guy putting the paint on the wall?
Right.
If you're the guy putting the paint on the wall, if you're the GC swinging the hammer, if you're the HVAC guy installing the unit, that works sometimes.
Yeah.
That might work. That's not duplicatable. You are the product. You are selling your time and yourself as a product. And thanks for coming, but that's not a company that's worth investing in for us because you're not going to grow. You're as big as you can be.
Well, and the other thing about that is, again, at that level, you know your money. Mm-hmm. You can spend your money however you want.
Yep.
You always, if you're looking to grow and develop and get to the next level, you have to look at what you're doing from the eyes of some other guy that you hired that you hope is going to work out, spending your money the same way.
Yep.
Are you okay with some other guy saying, yeah, I mean, he said he put in 40 hours, so I paid him for 40 hours.
Yep.
Right? You have to create a strategic system for that.
If you're paying a guy hourly or daily, I guarantee you this has happened to you. I'm working on a job. I know how much money I got that I've put aside to do whatever I'm doing on that job site. I got a guy out there. He's with me as my number 2 for 2 weeks. I'm out there swinging a hammer. I look down and we're out of money.
Yeah.
And so now I say, hey, buddy, I'm going to finish this up myself. I'm going to spend 3 days longer than I thought we were going to be out here, but I don't have money to pay you. So now I'm out here working by myself for 3, 4, 5 extra days. I had to push the other job that was supposed to start, and now I'm not making money for the time I'm out there. The job that I was going to start making money for now doesn't start for another week or 2, and everything falls apart because I ran out of money to pay the guy my help. Right. And so that is not a duplicatable system. That works for a one-man show who's looking to make some dollars today for the time he's putting on the job site. That is not a system or a company that grows.
So for me, there are 2 major things that I think are worth analyzing, knowing, and understanding. And I think one is, and this is something that we learned trial by error. We had hourly people that we were paying and whatever. And what we found is that more times than not, what happens is it's 5 o'clock in the afternoon. There's 1 hour worth of work left and the job will be done. Mm-hmm. But instead they cut out at 5, they go home, and then the next day they come back and maybe they only work till 11, 12 o'clock, but they get 3 or 4 hours extra pay for just coming back out there and whatever when they could have closed the job out at that time. So by paying hourly or by day, the sense of urgency is reduced or gone. Because why would I have urgency? The longer I'm out here, the more money I have, right? So a work order system creates a sense of urgency and accountability for your crew. But I think the other big one for me is that the goal of this is for you to be in control of the spend of your company.
Yeah.
And by having hourly or daily pay out there, you're not in control of it. Yes, you're in control, like, hey, you need to move faster, you got to be done by this time, blah, 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 blah. But at the end of the day, you have told them that you will pay them per day or per hour. And so they're in charge of how much you're going to spend.
Yeah.
A work order system, you're able to organize, I can afford to spend $1,500 for this executable thing on site.
Because that's what I've quoted. I've quoted the client $2,500, so I've got $1,500 to spend on it.
So I'm going to go to my guys at $1,000 or $1,250, so I have a little bit of buffer. And I can manage my own money, and I am in control of when and what I spend. Mm-hmm. So I think that is a major component of this. And the idea for me of that is, are you the one that's in charge of your business, or is the client and your crews the one who dictate how your business runs and your profit, right? The reality is that that's not a sustainable business where your crews and your client run your business. It's great if you're a one-man show, but if you're trying to grow something substantial, you have to have the control over all the aspects, and a work order system is a major piece of that.
And that example you used with the $1,500 that I've got to spend on X, when I go to my crew, if I misjudged how much we need to charge and how much it's going to cost, I can say, crew, you are a professional sheetrock installer.
Yeah.
This is how much we've got. This is what I'm willing to pay. Can you do it for this price? If they say yes, it is on them to complete for that amount of money for the job, and I will pay you when this job is
And if they get that done in one day, they make $1,500. If they get it on 10, they made $100.
But it also allows, before we start the work, for the crew to say, I can't do this for 15. I need at least $2,000. Or I need $2,500 to do this. Well, I bid $2,500. So at this point, I can go to my client and say, "Hey, I didn't realize these 3 factors. This is what's going on. This is why I brought in my sheetrock guys to look at it. I'm actually going to need $3,500 to get this done. We haven't started. You can pull this off our quote. That you're not locked into this price. And now it's not a change order, but it's a rescoping of what you've bid. Now they might not love it, but you're not trapping them in a bait and switch.
But also within our software, if depending on the status of the client and where you are in the job, you can also go into the software, change those dollars around, because maybe you've got another line item that you've got like 50-60% profit in, right? And so you know what? If I gave an extra $500 to this guy and he'd do it for $2,000, I can afford that and still hit my numbers. And so you can use the software to kind of know, can I afford to do that, right?
So one story of a company, they had probably 15 labor guys that were getting paid daily. If it rained, the guys didn't get paid. If it wasn't raining, it was sunny, they were showing up doing the work, and they got paid. We wanted to convert them to a work order system. And they were like, well, half our guys, like, they won't be able to survive. And we said, yes, perfect. Half the guys that are on your hourly are taking advantage of you. The other half, you are taking advantage of. They deserve more money. But they're all getting paid this hourly rate, and the guys that work their butts off aren't getting anything extra. And the guys that are lazy, taking the 2-hour lunch, are taking advantage of you. And so we switched them over to this, and they lost, I think, probably 75% of those guys went away because the guys were like, well, we can't make money this way. That's because you're not a hard worker. You're not good at what you do. This is the problem of where all your money was going as a company. And the 25% of guys that could keep up and started making more money took care of all of the work that all of those guys were doing.
And lined their pockets. And made way more money.
So the guys that are good workers, that are treating you well, not taking advantage of you, are now making a lot more money. And the guys that were taking advantage of you, they're gone. So
you're serving your clients better. You're more efficient. You can do more work. Right, your crews are more loyal to you. Yes, did you lose some crews and people and whatever? Yeah, sure did. But now you've seen there's efficiency that you were missing that you had no idea. You were doing everything right.
My last argument on this too is guys are like, it works this way. This is how we do it. This is how we're just going to keep doing it. That's great. John, who's out there as your number one crew that does 80% of your work, you're right. Because he's trustworthy as a person and he's a hard worker and he's got a good work ethic, it does work with John. You're right. If you want to scale, our company upstairs, our general contracting company, has like 328 subcontractors last time I saw the list.
Right.
You know, out of those 328, you got about 20 that have really good work ethic that doesn't matter how much you're paying them, they're going to show up and work their butts off. So you're right. Today, with John as your sub, this system works. I don't care about your current system working. I care about when we duplicate and get you to 350, 400 different subs, they're all profitable for the company. Not some of them are and some of them aren't.
Right.
So that's kind of the last point of this is you got to look at where you're going and set up for that, not what works today for your company. So that's
moving on to the next one, line item invoicing.
This is our biggest pushback. This is the hardest one. This is literally, people think we're crazy. People think you're an idiot for doing it this way.
It scares them too.
We've seen companies crumble. Literal companies that we have worked with that won't switch over to this went out of business, bankrupt companies because they couldn't switch over to this method. And this is the most risk that companies take, and they don't even see it. They don't understand it, and so we get pushback.
It's very hard to see.
It's very hard to transition away from it. So what we call line item invoicing, and our software allows you to invoice two ways: the way that contractors currently do it and the way that we coach. There's two different ways, and you can run every single job one way or another. You can pick which avenue you're going with each job of how you want to invoice. There is the bulk invoicing, which is the draw schedule invoicing. And some companies have to do that with insurance and whatnot. And so there's a draw schedule way to do draws in our system. You put them in, you put the dates, sends you reminders, it tells you when you should. When you add a change order, it says, hey, what draw are you going to add this change order to? Or do you want a new a new draw for this week for that, right? And so you can really manage the draw schedule in our system. We want you to get away from that for the majority of your jobs. If you're working with homeowners, if you're not required for a draw system by a bank or by an insurance company, we want to do line item invoicing. And here's our strongest pitch as to why it works and how we implemented it to be profitable from the start.
Well, and just a caveat, 100% of the people that come to us are doing bulk invoicing, are doing draw schedules, because that's the standard.
Yeah.
It's the standard.
It's 30% up front, 30% at halfway, and 30% at the end.
Right.
And it's great for seasons of that job when you got that down payment, and it's horrible once that money runs out and you're not at the halfway point or at the end point, and it always gets contentious with arguing with the clients, and it falls apart on a lot of jobs.
And honestly, with doing invoicing that way, it's okay. You can do it that way, and you can run companies that way.
Yeah.
There are some really, really bad pitfalls that if you get in them, it's the briar patch, right? You're stuck, and it's hard to get out.
It works right now for your company as a 1 or 2 man show because, again, you've got the spreadsheet in your brain of, I know how much I took in from this job. I know how much I need to spend on this job. This job needs that. And you can organize your money when you're running 7, 8, 10, 12 jobs yourself, because you know what's going on each job.
Right.
When you start hiring your very first project manager, that brain calculation is 100% gone, or you don't have a handle of what's actually happening on those job sites. And so your money becomes a pot system.
Right.
I put a bunch of money in the pot. We spend what we got to spend, what we think we need to spend. And at the end of the day, we cross our fingers because we're making 35% on these jobs. So we should have money left in the pot at the end of this. And the money's all gone, and you're trying to figure out why.
And that's if everything's running normally and there's no major problems that you have to throw money at to fix.
I'm going to tell you our line item invoicing process real quickly. Don't scoff at it. Don't laugh at it, because we make it work. And when we tell people this, like, you must be a small company. We are not a small company.
Right.
We do this a lot, and we do a ton of jobs, and we do it this way. And it takes more work. But it's the most important work that we've made time for, because this is how we ensure we're profitable.
Right.
All right. So what we do is say, when we're going into this first week of work, this is the materials I'm going to buy. I need a deposit for $10,000 because I'm going to spend $10,000 at Home Depot this week.
Right.
This week we're going to complete $8,000 worth of labor. Right. I'm not getting that up front, but I'm going to invoice you 2 days before I pay my crews for that first week of work.
Right.
Once we're completed at a certain spot, and I'm not going to go too deep into it, but we line it up to where when we cut off completion for what we're going to invoice the client, line item wise, is the same day that we cut off what the crew has to be done to get paid by Friday.
Right.
And so we say, okay, it's Tuesday. This is what the crew has completed. So on Friday, you're getting paid this for the last week from that Tuesday. So Wednesday to Tuesday. And we say to the client too, hey, it's Tuesday. This is what I'm paying my crews on Friday. That I need you to pay for. This is the invoice. And so we go and say, okay, paint is 20% done, demo is 100% done, and countertops are installed, so that's 100% done. Here's my invoice less the materials deposit that you already made, which is a separate line item. So I invoice those line items at a certain percentage. And at the same time, I say, okay, this Friday I expect to pay my crews 20% of the paint work order, 100% of the demo work order, and 100% of the countertop line item. And so I set that all in motion. And before this, during our CE, I have sat with the client and said, listen, I'm going to invoice on Tuesday. I need payment by Friday. If you want us to invoice as we complete work.
Right.
If you don't want to pay weekly, I need a deposit up front, and you got to trust me that I'm going to show up.
Right.
But the way we do it, our clients absolutely love, because they aren't at risk. It's not this fly-by-night company. And so we say, here's our invoice on Tuesday. You owe us $12,000. I'm paying my crews $8,000. The client doesn't know how much I'm paying my crews.
Right.
We send the invoice. If the client has 24 hours to look at the invoice, 48 hours to argue anything. So by Thursday, we know if anything's inaccurate. If they say the paint hasn't been started, well, I missed that. I'm sorry. I'm not going to pay the crew that because you're not going to pay me.
Right.
And so money in and money out happens on the same day. And so every dollar that we've got in our bank account left over after that Friday transaction is
cash.
profit. I can spend that. That's my money. So no matter what the books say, whatever accounting says, I know I spent $8,000 this Friday. My invoices for $12,000, and that $4,000 delta between them, that is profit.
Right.
That is not deposits for next week. That is not money that I owe out to somebody. That is bottom line profit this week.
Right.
And so it is a complicated system that's actually not that complicated. It's just it takes a lot of pre-planning for understanding this is the work order, this is how much you've done, I've walked the job on this day, I've invoiced the client, this is the process. That's why we focus on our process, because our process lays all this out and holds our subs accountable to what gets done on Tuesday and holds our clients accountable to what they have to pay by Tuesday.
Well, and some of the reality, and if you're listening to this and this doesn't apply to you, then fine. But for the most part, money management is not a strong suit in this world.
Correct.
Right? Most guys understand. I invoice. I've got profit in there. Hopefully, I've got enough money at the end of the day. Whatever. One of the biggest pitfalls of not doing this type of invoicing, of doing bulk invoicing or draw schedules or whatever, is that you are invoicing for what you're going to do. You're not invoicing for what you've done already, right? And the pitfall is what that client, let's say you invoice for $20,000 up front for a job. What the client doesn't know is that you've got a job in the background that's in the pits.
Yeah.
You've overspent. You've got to get out of that job. You're spinning your wheels and you need 10 grand. That's it. If I can throw 10 grand at it, I can finally be done with that nightmare client.
Yep.
Right? Well, now you've got the cash. So you take 10 grand of that, you close out that job. Whew, now I'm done. Now you've created a snowball because now you're day one upside down on a good job.
You stole from client B to make client A happy. But now you don't have money for client B.
And so I've talked to a lot of people about this, obviously, and the pushback a lot of times that I get, like, oh, I get that, and one of the things that I have learned how to do is I have multiple bank accounts. And so when I receive a deposit, that deposit goes into the bank account associated with job 1, 2, 3, 4, right? And I don't do any spending out of that bank account other than for that job. And at the end of the day, when the job is done, the money left over is my profit. And I said, you know what? That's great on a small scale. But if you're trying to go to the next level, that's not sustainable.
Yeah.
You can't have, our GC company right now has 50, 75 jobs going simultaneously.
Yeah.
Who out there has 75 bank accounts?
Yeah.
Right? You can't, it's not sustainable for growing to the next level. It's great if you're going to be on a small scale doing, 50 jobs a year max.
Yeah.
Right?
The important part of this is the first thing we talked about, work orders. If I'm paying people daily or hourly and then I'm invoicing by line item, I often will be paying them for work that I can't invoice till next week.
Yeah.
And so I'm going to get behind and it just doesn't work. So systematically, you have to do the work orders first in our system and then change your invoicing over. Now, this is not an overnight thing. Work orders is an overnight thing. We call all the subs together. We say, listen, this is the new subcontractor agreement. Let us walk you through it. And we have a planned meeting, have all the subs re-sign paperwork. It's a lot of work, but it's getting control of your cash.
Right.
Then once we have that, we start implementing the way we invoice and cherry picking jobs that transfer over.
I call it the Indiana Jones transition, right?
Yes.
That, like, getting the jewel and rolling the sand over.
Yep.
You can't just grab it and go. Unless you've got a stack of capital cash that you can apply towards the catch-up necessary.
Yep.
If you don't have that, you have to strategically choose the jobs that for this, like you were saying, this job, I'm going to run it with this new invoicing style. This job, and you have to choose it and be strategic.
Well, and we say that we've never seen a company transition quicker than a 5 to 6 month period in doing this. And the reason is, if you are actually profitable in the way you're doing it with the way you're invoicing, you can transition today.
Right.
But you're not. You're working in the rears. You're taking money from the future to spend on work today. And to show that, to prove that to you, is that you can't switch to this.
Right.
Well, I need money to start the next job. Well, you should be able to start the next job with the money that's on that next job.
Right.
Well, I can't. I need that. Okay, so you are not profitable. You're losing money and you can't see it.
Right.
Your bank account says you're profitable. Your QuickBooks says you're profitable. But if you stop today, you're going to spend more than what you have to get
Right.
the jobs done.
Right.
And so we're setting you up to not fail in the future when you have a hiccup, when you have 2 project managers quit, when you have a downturn in the economy and all of a sudden your 10 leads a week drop down to 2 leads a week, right? And so we're setting you up to be able to traverse those rough waters when they're going to inevitably come in the future.
Yeah.
Those are hard to get through on its own. To be in debt and to be borrowing from the future will shut your company down.
And you know, like you say all the time, you use a litmus test on this, right? A great way is just in your head. If tomorrow you shut down your company, you do 0 more work, run the balance sheet, pay everybody off, where do you land?
Or you take no more jobs. You complete the work that you've got on your table.
Sure.
And the amount of labor you got to pay and materials you got to pay to finish this versus how much you can invoice.
Well, I mean, again, even if you don't do that, right? If my work order system is backwards and I've paid people in front of the work that they've done, if I draw a line, either complete the jobs that you're on, right, and don't take on any more work, and we close everything out, where do I stand? Right? If you come in the negatives by any amount, you're not profitable. Right? You're not operating on a daily basis as a profitable business.
This is not a company worth investing in and trying to build with this method, because it's not going to make you money. And why are you wasting your time doing it?
Yeah, because let's be honest, this business is stressful. This industry is stressful. It's hard. There's a lot of aspects that are really difficult to deal with. There are great days, but there's a lot of really difficult grinding days. And if you're not making good money, go somewhere else.
On these first 2 things, the work orders and the invoicing, if you're listening to this, it's either overwhelming or B, you're like, that doesn't make sense, that doesn't work. I understand that, because this is a large systematic change that we try to implement. That's number 1, understand that this isn't an overnight thing, and it takes a lot of wrapping your mind around exactly how it works, and it's different for every company. So you got to get into your company and help you implement it the right way, number 1. Number 2, if it seems like this is overwhelming and it's not going to work, reach out to us and we'll explain it in detail. We're hitting it from 30,000-foot view, but the goal is to survive and to thrive as a company, not to just live paycheck to paycheck. And so this is a harder way to run business, but is a safe, profitable way to run business. And so are you okay with doing a little hard work to get your company profitable and to get a retirement plan in place? Then let's do it and let's transition this. And number 3, if you get in and you're coaching with us and you say, this doesn't work for me, I want to keep invoicing this way, no problem. This is your company. We're consulting with you. We're saying this is what we've seen work. We've seen this.
It's not our job to tell you what to do.
Yeah, we've seen a draw schedule work really well. It's just risky because you can get behind without knowing. And so you can keep running that way.
And I've got guys that I coach that do that.
Absolutely.
They say, I just want to do draw schedule. I feel more comfortable with that. And I say, that's fine. Here are the possible pitfalls. Let's set some things in place to keep from falling into those.
Nothing we coach is a requirement. Everything is what we think. If you have a different way or if it affects you differently, if you are a water remediation company where you have to go through Xactimate and insurance, let's build around that, but let's put different safeguards in place to ensure that you're profitable on this. So don't think that what we're saying is like, I don't want to do that. I'm not going to call you guys or get with ProServe Alliance, because it's your company at the end of the day, and you call the shots. We are just advisors. We are your board of directors helping you make decisions that are a bigger view of the future as opposed to how I need to make money today. So the third thing that we get into that we get a lot of pushback from.
Fire hose spending.
Is, I'm spending $1,200 a month on Facebook ads. I'm going to hire this person to run my front office because they're going to start doing intakes and they're going to be running this. And what I'm going to have them do is going to these events to start bringing in more clients. And then I'm going to also hire someone to do this. And it's not time to hire day one.
Everyone that comes into us is looking for at least one of these things, because it feels like if I get that, it will solve some or most of the problems that I'm having. I need to hire a project manager. I need to hire an office manager. I need to spend money on marketing. I need to buy leads. I need a better website. I need, all of those things, there's nothing wrong with them.
Correct.
But throwing money at them with I think you said this on the last podcast, if I spend it, you got to spend money to make money.
Yeah.
Right? You got to spend money strategically for it to work.
Yeah.
Right? If not, you're just crapping a lot of money in a direction hoping that it works.
If you don't know my current product is profitable, it feels like it is, but I don't know because I don't know every dollar and where it's going and when it's coming and all that. If I don't have that organized, why am I spending money to sell more of that product?
Right.
We need to build a profitable, proven product from what you've currently built and make it duplicatable, because right now you're probably maxed out. So we spend money on marketing and we double the amount of work you're doing. Mm-hmm. Well, you're just doubling the amount of hours you're spending and lowering your customer service to your clients. So how are we going to take on that more work? How are we going to organize that stuff? You want to hire an office manager. Great. What's their job description? What are they going to be doing? What do you have to teach them? What is the system that you're going to show them of where they plug into? There's a lot of planning and organization before spending money, or that money is a waste.
Well, and that's what I was about to say. I think we've got a podcast where we talk about this, that any hire that you make, especially a project manager, you need to set $20,000 on a desk and set it on fire because it's going away. Either way you look at it, it's going away. And it's either going to have an ROI or it's going to be a reputation problem. Mm-hmm. It's one or the other, right? So you're going to have to spend the money. So do you have 15, 20 grand that you can burn? Well, no, but they're going to be,
it's my cousin and she's awesome at this, and I know that.
I know in 3 weeks they're going to be able to be invoicing X amount and making that money back to me. Do you? Right.
If everything goes well, that's great, and if everything else goes well, you don't need us.
Yeah.
But
I have had in every one of those conversations, a large majority of them go, either they say to me or they just do it in the background.
Yeah.
Because I'll be like, look, here's the reason why you should hold on hiring right now.
Yeah.
Blah 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 blah. And 2 weeks later, I get a text or an email or a phone call. Hey, FYI, I found a guy. I found a guy.
Great.
Okay, cool. Awesome. So how do we move forward? And I don't like the coming back and being like, you were right. Because if they're coming back to me and saying, yeah, you were right, that means they lost.
Yep.
And I don't like that.
Yeah.
But most times they come back and are like, dude, I thought that person was the money. And they screwed me.
Let's learn from that and go from there.
That's right.
Yeah.
So what we're talking about in this space is like everybody that comes into us is if they're reaching out to us, they're wanting to grow and they've figured out something's wrong. I don't know what it is. And so when you're in that space,
or something's not wrong, but I don't know how to get to the next level. Everything's great. I just don't know how to duplicate myself. I've hired 3 people thinking that they're going to do what I'm doing, and they never work out.
And what feels like the right thing to do is if I had more business, if I had better reviews, if people could see me better on a website.
I'm not good with numbers, so I'm going to hire an office manager.
If I had somebody to just organize my books, right? All of that stuff feels like the right thing, and it is in the right time.
In the right order.
In the right order.
Yep, that's right.
And that's when we're talking about somebody coming into us, one of the biggest things that we do is we look, where do you want to go?
Yeah.
Right? 5 years from now, do you want to exit? What's success, right? What's that at the end of this year? What does that look like? How do we get there?
Yeah.
And then we go through and say, okay, so to get to that, you need to hire somebody.
Yep.
To hire somebody, here's a strategic place of the best place that you should hire somebody to get the best results out of them. And to be able to hire, you need to have these things in place. And we back it all the way back in. And now, yes, let's spend, but let's choose when we're going to do it.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
And so it's creating organization around what you want to do when everybody wants to microwave it.
Yeah.
1 minute, I got my hot meal.
Yep.
That's not the way it works.
Well,
it's just not.
We were on our last retreat in January, and one of the guys that was first timer on the retreat was there, and we were planning out his 2023.
Yeah.
And it's funny because this is the opposite of our normal interaction with guys, because we're looking at 2023 for him. And we're like, so when do you think you're going to make your first hire? And he was like, well, not till 2024. Why? I don't know. Well, why? I mean, what made you think, like, when you're laying out 2023, when we walk through how to lay out and what we're looking at the next year, why 2024? I'm just not going to be ready till then. Why? We need to justify. I want to hire as soon as we can, but I want to wait as long as possible. So let's look at when that date is and work backwards. What needs to be in place to make the hire? Here's our steps. We need job descriptions. We need processes. We need the finance. We need all this stuff set in place. When can you achieve that? Well, I should have this done by the end of the month, and by April I should have this done, right? And so we lay out what is going to be accomplished and say, okay, so you should be hiring by August, this looks like. So let's strategically look at that and if that works and why that would or wouldn't. And so we work backwards, and that was the first time that we've actually talked someone into hiring sooner than they were planning to. But it was because he had no information and no planning. He just knew he wasn't ready today. And so it's scary to take on that responsibility.
Most guys in January are like, all right, so what hires are you going to make this year? Well, I'm going to make 7.
Yeah.
Oh, 7. Okay, let's...
Pause. Great. And who's your funding coming from?
Which that was odd. Like that was the first time that we'd actually like worked the other direction.
Which is great. That's a great mindset to have. I mean, for us to hear that is like, great. You are realistic in this, and you want to be cautious as opposed to throw caution in the wind and just start spending money.
Yeah.
So those are the 3 things: work orders, invoices, and slowing down your spend and strategically spending money are the 3 spots where people don't listen to us and come back later and try to change it later on down the road.
Yeah. Well, and the reason why those are the big ones is, and the reason why we really push that direction is all of those are ones that we have seen time and time again. There's a pitfall that, if not addressed, can cause some really major issues, including companies shutting down and whatever. So it's really, really important to address those things and have a strategic plan of here's how we're going to operate. We have these ways that we recommend, that we have some proven facts and reasons why they work. But at the end of the day, you have to look at your systems and processes from the perspective of where am I going, right? And how am I going to get there? And that's what the benefit of coming in with ProServe Alliance is, that we've got some experience with that, and we help walk you down the road of that, and you have a monthly person to kind of help keep you accountable, keep you on the guide rails, and give you the, okay, yeah, my experience with that is this. Right?
That's great. So if you want to talk more about this, if you want some of this guidance, email us, Clark@ProServeAlliance.com, Jared@ProServeAlliance.com. We would love to chat with you on this stuff. You can go to our website, learn a little bit more about us. ProServeAlliance.com is the website. Check us out, learn more. Even if you want some help or some clarity on what we just talked about, and you're not looking to spend any money, no problem. We'd love to help.
I mean, we do that all the time.
For us, it's long-term relationships with contractors that help them get to the next level, whether they're coming through Alliance, they're just using the software, or anything in between. We love to help guys getting there. That's the fun of it for us. So thanks for listening, and we'll see you guys next podcast.
See ya.
Thanks.